Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Rebecca, your host of Crafting and Crying Daily. This is the show where I recap live trials. Today, I've got a preview of an upcoming trial where they will be starting jury selection on Monday. And we're going to go back to Florida for this one. Stay tuned. Good morning, everybody. Well, it might not be morning when you see this, but it's morning for me. Got my coffee, iced coffee, because I can't even with this heat do hot coffee. Anyway, we're going to talk about Ashley and Doug Benefiled. Ashley will go on trial for the murder of her husband, Doug Benefiled. On Monday, they will start with jury selections. They had a motion hearing yesterday. You know how all the motions in limine, what are we going to talk about? What are we not going to talk about? So that went down yesterday. A lot of coverage of this one. And you may have seen this. The bigger channels have titled it The Black Swan Murder because Ashley was a ballerina. Now, Ashley Benefield had been training as a ballerina since she was 8 years old. But by the time she got to be about 21 or so, she realized this is not happening for me. And she started teaching ballet and then tried to do some swimsuit modeling. And that really wasn't working out either. So she kind of needed a source of income. So she meets Donald Trump. Yeah, registered Republican. Anyway, so Trump, however, does not recall ever meeting Ashley Benefield, but there are pictures with her and Donald Trump. In any case, she becomes his campaign manager out of Sarasota, the Trump campaign office in Sarasota. She was in charge. And she goes to this fundraiser for the Ben Carson. Ben Carson was running for the presidency. So she goes to a fundraiser at his house, a dinner, and she meets Doug Benefiled. And Doug was 30 years older than her, 54 at the time that they met. And it was love at first sight. They bonded over God and guns and, whatever you discuss at a Republican campaign dinner. And 13 days later, they were married. And it's not like they spent all of those 13 days together. He was off on a business trip to Israel, like right after they met. 6 days into the relationship, because they're texting while he's out of town. They say, I love you. And then as soon as he gets back, they get married. What? That's insane. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion. That's insane. Catfish. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so they get married. And the what was it called? Oh, the St. Michael's Episcopal Christian Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, this is where they were living at the time, Charleston, South Carolina. Now, he has a 15-year-old daughter from a previous marriage. He had already married twice. His first marriage ended in divorce after 6 months. He was probably too young. And then the second marriage to the love of his life, Renee Benefield, she dies of a sudden heart attack. She had some heart disease. And there was an autopsy. Because later on, Ashley's going to claim that he was trying to poison her and that he killed his second wife. Anyway, so 15-year-old daughter, Eva, what does she think of this quick marriage? Here, I want to show you. Take a listen.
Okay, so when I was 15, my mom died of an underlying heart condition. And then basically my dad was out of town, and then I came home from school and I found her. So that was the start of a lot of trauma. And then after that, my dad came home and he specifically told me, don't worry, Eva, I'm never going to get married again. Well, he didn't use those exact words, but that's how I remember it. And then after that, 9 months later, he married. He was like, it was a Friday after school, and he married. It was a Friday after school, and he was like, so I'm seeing this girl. And I was like, okay. And then he picked her up from the airport the next day, and I met her. And he was like, she's super cool. She's a model and a ballerina. And I was like, okay, like, cool. She's kind of hot, but I don't see the hype. She's 23, dude. Like, come on. Then I was like, all right, well, you're allowed to date. Like, you're a single man. I get it. And then the next day he was like, we need to have a family meeting. And I was like, no, because we're not a family. And the only thing that you should have to tell me is if you propose. And as soon as those words came out of my mouth, he goes, we're married. And
they're married. She wasn't thrilled. She has a lot to say, and that's her TikTok account if you want to go check that out. I'm curious if she's going to appear during the trial. I suspect she has a lot to say during this trial coming up. In any case, they get married. They decide she wants to start this ballet company. Now, what does he do for a living? There's not a lot out there on the internet about this guy, but he was an entrepreneur, kind of always starting these businesses and not always on the up and up, just my opinion. Anyway, so he says, okay, we'll start this ballet company. And it was called the American National Ballet Company. So they start hiring dancers for this company. Now, the idea behind this dance company was that they would hire, that they wanted diversity. They wanted tall people, short people, heavy people. It didn't matter. People that had been excluded from the ballet world that were really, really good dancers. And they went international with this, and people applied and they got jobs with this ballet company. They even absorbed the Charleston Ballet Company. And while this is going on, Ashley decides, I want to get pregnant, but Doug had a vasectomy. So he gets it reversed, and she gets pregnant, but she starts getting really, really sick from this pregnancy. So she doesn't have anything to do with the ballet company because she's like, I'm going to go to Florida and stay with my mom and rest. Okay. And so now this guy who knows nothing about ballet companies is running this ballet company on his own. And that was in September of 2017. So shortly after that, Ashley and her mother drive over 400 miles from Florida to South Carolina and then sneak into the house and takes all of her things, I should say. And she leaves them a letter. Here's the letter. So in this letter, she says, all these things and more I have overlooked and lived with for now a year because I love you. But ever since finding out I was pregnant, you have continued to display psychotic, irrational, and unsafe behavior that has left me fearful for my life and safety as well as that of my unborn child. I have come to get only what belongs to me. Do not harass or try to follow me, or I will call the police, and I have a restraining order against you. I will talk with you only via text starting Tuesday, September 19th. 2 days later. Do not call me or my mom. We will not pick up. Thank you for your understanding, Ashley. That is so businesslike. Oh my gosh. Isn't that sweet of her? So apparently what was going on, there was one incident where she gets into, like, things started getting rocky pretty quickly after they got married because they didn't know each other. And, now there's this 15-year-old daughter and she's not taken to stepmom really well at all because there's only like 5 years separating them. 5? I don't know. Well, whatever. I can't do math. 15, 5, 9 years separating them. And, Ava seems to be kind of a strong personality. So this is causing friction between her and Doug. And there was one point where there's a loud argument. And in order to stop her from being so loud, he shoots a gun into the ceiling. Now, and he admits that he did this. Now, there may have been other incidents that we don't know about. I don't know what's going to come out during this trial because her defense is domestic violence. So he decides after she moves out, he's going to move to Sarasota. Meanwhile, this ballet company, he doesn't know how to pay these people. He's not getting the funding that he thought he was going to get. And So what he does is he's got to reach into his own pockets to pay these people. So he has all of them sign non-disclosure agreements. And then as soon as they all sign it, he fires them, fires 23 of them. Yeah. And the rest, he's like, well, you can continue to work here, but for free. Yeah, that doesn't go over real well. Anyway, so meanwhile, Ashley, she thinks that her husband, because she was so sick with this pregnancy, she thinks that Doug was trying to poison her. So she actually goes to this lab called the Carleton Company. And the Carleton Company lab comes back, she sends a hair sample, and they come back and say that you had heavy metals in your hair, that yes, you were being poisoned. And this, by the way, is the same company that did some testing on Brittany Murphy. Remember Brittany Murphy? She also died. And they said that this company said that she had heavy metals in her hair. And this turned out to be bunk. It just was not true. And so very suspect in Ashley's case. But so Ashley files this motion with the court for full custody of the child. The child's not even been born yet. And the court, well, this is ongoing. And Ashley goes to the hospital, tells them, shows them she's got heavy metals in her system from this lab. They do an emergency C-section, not scheduled. Doug knows nothing about this C-section. And she doesn't let him see the baby. 4 months later, there's this ongoing custody battle, and the judge in the custody gives them she awards joint custody to Doug, because he was actually suing for full custody, but the judge awards joint custody to both of them. And she, during this hearing for custody, Ashley offers evidence of what she says is poisoning. She actually took her daughter for hyperbaric treatment to get rid of the poisons out of her system. So she offers all this to the judge, an expert to say, and the judge says, there is not one scintilla of evidence that you were poisoned. That credible evidence. Yeah. So she awards joint custody to them both. Now, the battle's still ongoing because Ashley's not really, in favor of this ruling. But meanwhile, they're like getting back together. We will never, ever, ever get back together. I need coffee. Yeah. Once I start singing Taylor, you got to get the coffee. Mm-hmm. So she decides, I'm going to move to Maryland. And Doug's lawyer warns him, hey, she could be forum shopping. So just be careful, because he's going to follow her to Maryland. I'm going to pack up and go to Maryland. So they are actually packing up their stuff in the U-Haul. He goes over to her house with his U-Haul. They got one more box to put in the thing. And I don't know if she's told him yet, but she had no plans to live with him in Maryland. And I don't know when she told him, but mom conveniently takes the baby and goes for a walk. Now, this is late at night. We're going to go for a late night walk with the 4-month-old while you help with this last box. Well, next thing you know, the neighbor's calling 911 because Ashley is standing at their doors saying, I just shot my husband. And she's got a .45 caliber weapon in her hand. And that's why we're going to court on Tuesday, because she shot and killed Doug Benefiled. We're going to hear from the medical examiner about how he died. Of course, it's gunshot wound, but we'll get all the details in the skinny during the trial. So that is the trial I'm going to be covering next week. I know. So I'm just trying to think. Oh, I will tell you, Eva has a clothing line called Ghost Cowboy, if you want to check that out. Yeah, because his life insurance had expired, so there was no life insurance for his daughter to help support herself. So sad. So that was not the motivation to kill him. I think the motivation to kill him was she just wanted her baby to herself, and she didn't want him in her life anymore. What's wrong with just getting a divorce, people? Why don't you just get divorced? Yeah. Why are you shooting each other? I'm just saying. Anyway, she did try a stand your ground defense. There's a defense in Florida, stand your ground. And what this stand your ground is, it means you have no duty to retreat. If you're lawfully where you should be and someone is threatening you and you eminently believe that your life is in danger, you don't have the duty to retreat. And you can shoot them. Well, they had a huge hearing on this, and that didn't fly. The judge ruled against her. No, you do not get I can't talk. You do not get a stand your ground defense. So her defense is battered woman. She's a battered woman. And there are lots of protesters out there, similar to the Karen Reed case, where there was protesters out there, in favor of Karen Reed because she's a victim of domestic violence. They're going to be out there for Ashley as well. Ashley's now about 31 years old, still a very beautiful woman, in jail. Oh, not in jail. I'm sorry. She's out on bail. The daughter that this custody was all over with, she's 6 months old. And I will tell you, this will probably come out during the trial. They had both just undergone, Ashley and Doug, they had both just undergone psychological testing, and the results were scheduled to come out in the next few days. And I don't think she wanted anybody to see those results, or maybe they weren't in her favor. I don't know. But, he gets killed before these psychological results come out. So there you have it, folks. All right. I will see you soon, because I've got some other videos for you. And there is a new trial that starts today, and I'm going to cover the opening statements for that. And the defendant was doing witchcraft. Yep. See you then. Bye.